Guys, please check your audio and video settings, please. Super, guys. Spring Web MVC, flow of execution. Spring Web MVC, Spring MVC, flow. Are Spring Web MVC or MVC, both are same, both are same. Components in Spring Web MVC application development. I'm talking about various components that are there in what? Spring MVC web application development. Okay, guys. Number one, dispatcher servlet. Number two, controller class, handler class. Number three, handler mapping. Number three, view resolver. Number four, view component. I will introduce one by one. Just listen. When I give the diagrammatic representation for them, you will get the idea. You will get the idea. Listen carefully. Dispatcher servlet, guys. Yesterday I said, na, it's a ready-made front controller servlet of Spring MVC application. The ready-made front controller servlet component, which traps either all requests or multiple requests to apply common system services. To simply apply common system services. Right now, boss? Entire Spring Web MVC is designed around front controller dispatcher servlet component. That means all navigations takes place around front controller dispatch servlet. Each and every flow, each and every activity is going to happen with respect to under the control of dispatcher servlet. Understanding, guys? Yes. While learning servlet JSP, did you ever work with predefined servlet classes, guys? Did you ever work with predefined servlet classes, guys? No. No. Right, my dear? Okay. So now we have dispatcher servlet, which is dealing with the predefined servlet, which is a predefined servlet. Though it's a predefined servlet, its configuration in web.xml is mandatory, either with extension match or directory match URL pattern. Okay, see the second point, next point. Though dispatcher servlet component is predefined servlet component, available in Spring-web-mvc-version.jar file. Its configuration in web.xml file is mandatory, either with a directory match URL pattern or a extension match URL pattern. Which is more recommended, guys? Or with slash. Or with slash. Or with slash, guys. Tell me, directory match, extension match to take multiple requests, guys. Not to take all requests. It is there to take multiple requests. To trap and take multiple requests. Okay, slash is there to take all requests. To trap and take all requests. To trap and take all requests. Okay, guys. Now tell me next one. Here is my web.xml file. Dispatcher servlet is configured now, boss. Servlet name, dispatcher, logical name. Servlet class, fully qualified dispatcher servlet class name. Okay, listen. Such an important servlet. So better to enable pre-instantiation on dispatcher servlet. For that one, we need to enable load on startup on it or not. For that one, we need to enable load on startup on it or not. I want reply. For that one, we need to enable load on startup on it. What do you say, guys? We definitely need to enable load on startup. Understanding my statement, guys? Okay. Fully qualified servlet component as the class name. Dispatcher should match, guys, URL pattern. Right now, I have taken extension match URL pattern. You can give directory match or you can give what? Slash also as the URL pattern. Slash also as the URL pattern. Listen, in Spring MVC application, dispatcher servlet acts as front controller. That means it acts as single entry and exit point for all the request and response. Dispatcher servlet controls and monitors all the activities of Spring MVC application. But it's a ready-made one. If we configure, that is enough. If we configure, that is enough, na boss. Okay. If dispatcher servlet URL pattern is star.do or directory match, then it can take multiple requests that are having matching URL patterns of DS. Only multiple requests they can take. If dispatcher servlet URL pattern is slash, then it can take all requests coming to web application. So taking slash is recommended. Load on startup enabled on DS. DS means dispatcher servlet. Now onwards, please remember. Make servlet container to instantiate initialized DS either during server startup, during the deployment of web application. Are you understanding my statement, guys? During server startup or during the deployment of the web application. Dispatch servlet is such an important servlet. If its object is created, before any other objects are created, before any request comes, just during deployment of the web application, it would be really, really nice or not? It would be really, really nice or not? I want reply, boss. It would be really, really nice or not? I want reply from you people, guys. As part of DS initialization, it creates dispatcher servlet creates IOC container of type web application context by taking web.inf slash DS logical name dispatcher hyphen servlet.xml as Spring Bean configuration file. In that process, all singleton scope Spring Beans placed in Spring Bean configuration file will be pre-instantiated and also complete necessary injections among them. DS is not just servlet problem. In the init method of dispatcher servlet, logic is there to create IOC container by taking web.inf slash dispatcher servlet logical name hyphen servlet.xml as Spring Bean configuration file. Okay, once that IOC container is created, all Spring Beans that are having singleton scope will be pre-instantiated. On those Spring Beans, injections will be completed, na boss? On those Spring Beans, injections will be completed, na boss? In standalone application, we created IOC container manually. In Spring MVC application, am I going to create IOC container? Dispatcher servlet only creates the IOC container. Dispatcher servlet only creates the IOC container. Creates by taking which file name as Spring Bean configuration file. DS logical name dispatcher hyphen servlet.xml as Spring Bean configuration file. From which location? Web.inf location. In that process, all singleton scope Spring Beans that are configured in that XML file will be pre-instantiated or not. And injections will take place on those objects automatically or not. Injections will take place on those objects automatically or not.
Thank you, Padma. Thank you, Srinivas Reddy uncle. Thank you, Disha Reddy uncle. Thank you, Subba Reddy uncle.
Okay, guys. Now listen carefully. In Spring MVC application, servlet container manages dispatcher servlet component, whereas JSP container manages JSP component. But the Spring Beans configured in Spring Bean configuration file or through annotation will be managed by IOC container that is created by dispatcher servlet. By the IOC container that is created by dispatcher servlet. Agree with me, guys? Got the point, my dear? IOC container created by the dispatcher server. Super, boss. The Spring Bean configuration file of Spring MVC application. IOC servlet container is now managing dispatcher servlet. JSP container manages JSP component. Remaining all Spring Beans configured in Spring Bean configuration file will be managed by IOC container, which is again created by dispatchers. Which is again created by dispatcher servlet. Right now, boss? The Spring Bean configuration file of Spring MVC application contains handler mapping. I'll introduce one by one. Controller or handler classes. Service classes configuration. DAO classes configuration. View resolvers configuration. We take all these things as Spring Beans having singleton scope. All these beans instantiation and injection among them will be taken care by IOC container, which is created by the dispatcher servlet or not? Which is created by the dispatcher servlet or not? I want reply, boss. I want reply, boss. Getting my point? Controller or handler class, boss. What class, guys? Controller or handler class. Okay, now tell me, boss. I ask simple question. Dispatch servlet is ready-made one. Can we write our own logic inside that class to process the request? So then there should be someone to take the request to process the request, or at least to pass the request to appropriate service class and DAO classes. That class is nothing but a handler class, also called as controller class. Dispatcher servlet is front controller. The helper class for front controller, where request processing takes place, or delegation of logics to service class, DAO class takes place, is called controller class or handler class. Is called controller class or handler class. And in small application, in the handler class itself, we keep request processing logic. In bigger applications, come on, we keep the delegation logic to pass the request to service class and DAO classes for request process. It is a programmer developed user-defined Java class comes Spring Bean, having handler method to process the request directly, or by taking the support of DAO, or directly, or by taking the support of service comma DAO classes. By taking the support of service comma DAO classes. This controller or handler class handles request given by DS. DS means dispatcher servlet. This controller or handler class handles the request given by DS. Controller handler class is one per module. For entire module, single controller class or handler class we will take as. We configure handler and controller classes as Spring Beans in Spring Bean configuration file. In Spring Bean configuration file. Configuration file. What is that, guys? DS logical name hyphen servlet.xml. DS logical name hyphen servlet.xml. Understood my statement? This is controller class. Okay, now I'll ask one small question. Project is having 20 modules. How many controller classes will be there? Guys, 20 controller classes. I want reply from everyone. How many dispatcher servlet will be there? How many dispatcher servlet component will be there? Only one. Only one. Only one dispatcher servlet. Right now, boss? One dispatcher servlet, 20 plus controller classes. Right now, boss? Okay, now tell me. When dispatcher servlet traps and takes the request, please listen carefully. Okay, when dispatcher servlet traps and takes a request, which request should go to which handler class, which controller class for request mapping should be decided by one component, and that component is nothing but handler mapping component. Okay, dispatcher servlet traps and takes all the requests. Different requests will be handled by different handler classes, because inside the handler class, methods will be there to take the request, to process the request. Yes, na boss? Okay, now tell me, when there are 20 handler classes and one dispatcher servlet, there should be someone between dispatcher servlet and handler classes to decide which request should go to which handler class, boss? Which request should go to which method of which handler class? And that special component is nothing but handler mapping component. That special component is nothing but handler mapping component. See, guys, this component acts as helper component to DS, dispatcher servlet, to map or link incoming request to appropriate handler method of handler classes. Most of the time we use ready-made handler classes like request mapping, handler mapping, bean name, handler mapping, and etc. Request mapping, handler mapping, bean name, handler mapping, and etc. We have a lot of ready-made handler classes. See, I think you understood the situation, your usual situation. Web application is getting 30 requests. All requests will be trapped and taken by whom? Dispatcher servlet. We have different handler method in different handler classes. Which request should go to which handler method of which handler class or which controller class? Decided by whom? A special component. Who is that special component? Handler mapping. Yes, na boss? Everyone getting my point there, guys? Okay, everyone understood the importance of the handler mapping? The bridge between, the broker between dispatcher, servlet, handler classes is what? Handler mapping. Next, what is there? View resolver. Okay, now listen. View resolver. Array, tell me, to process different requests, we are taking different handler classes. They process the request, they generate the results. Sometimes they talk with the service and DAO classes, from there get the results. Somehow these pass those results to view components. But which handler method result should be processed by which view component, which technology view component, which location view component will be decided by whom, guys? Will be decided by whom, guys? View resolver. What, guys? There is a special component called view resolver. View resolver resolves the view, identifies the view, locates the view. View resolver resolves the view, identifies the view, identifies the view. Array, now tell me, between handler classes and view component, who is the bridge? Who is the broker? Which handler method result of handler class should be processed, should be formatted by which view component? Is decided by whom, guys? View resolver. Right now, boss? Between dispatcher servlet and handler class handler method, who is the broker? Handler mapping. Between handler classes and view component, who is the broker? View resolve. Which handler method result, okay, should be processed by which view component? View resolver does not give presentation logic. It will just gives idea about which view component should be used of which location and which technology to process the result generated by the handler methods. To process the result generated by the handler methods. Right now, boss? View resolver component decides which physical view component like JSP or HTML file, etc., should be used to process the results generated by handler class or controller class after processing the request. View component contains presentation logic. It collects related info from DS and gives view object back to DS having physical view component name and location. Physical view component name and location to dispatcher servlet. So that means which handler method result should be processed, should be formatted by using which physical view component is decided by the view resolver. Most of the time we use ready-made view resolver like internal resource view resolver, tiles view resolver, and etc. We also configure these classes as Spring Beans in Spring Bean configuration file. Next, what is there, guys? View component. Our view components are nothing but HTML, JSP, okay, React.js, Angular.js files are where presentation logic is there to format the result and to display the results. These are UI technology components like HTML file, JSP files having presentation. These components format the result, collect from what? Handler or controller classes and sends those results to browser through dispatcher servlet. Sends those results to browser through dispatcher servlet. Are you getting my point there, guys? So can I ask a few questions before showing the diagram? Can I ask a few questions before showing the diagram? Okay. Who traps and takes all the requests coming to Spring MVC web application? Dispatcher servlet. How many dispatcher servlet will be there in Spring MVC web application? How dispatcher servlet decides which request should go to which handler class method? It takes the support of which component? It takes the support of which component? Handler mapping component. Super. Once the request is processed directly or indirectly in the handler method of handler class. Okay. Handler method of handler class. Okay. Using which component? The physical view component will be decided using which generated result should be formatted. Using which the generated result should be formatted. What is that component, guys? Understanding my statement, guys? These are UI technology components like HTML file, JSP files, having presentation logics. These components format the results collected from the handler or controller classes, sends those results to browser through DS. Sends those results to browser through DS, right? View components are user-defined components. View components are user-defined components. Are nothing but HTML, JSP files. Okay, can we understand the flow of execution, guys? You feel this entire box is Spring MVC web application. Cool, guys? Okay. Browser gives a request. Super. Here is the dispatcher servlet, the big boss. Traps and takes the request. Number 2 is clear. Number 1 is clear. Browser gives request to web application. Dispatcher servlet traps and takes the request. Right now, boss? Dispatcher servlet traps and takes the request. Super, guys. Tell me. Number 3, dispatcher servlet handovers the request to whom, guys? Handler mapping. Handler mapping. Number 3. Number 4, question mark. Question mark means searching, boss. Question mark means searching, please. This handler mapping component searches for correct handler method. Correct handler method. Okay. To process the current request. To process the current request. Collects that handler method signature and controller class bean ID and gives to whom? Dispatcher servlet. 4 is searching for correct handler method. 5 is what? Bean ID of controller class and method details are passed to dispatchers. Come on, guys. Once again, number 1, 2, 4. Browser gives request to Spring MVC web application. Number 2, as front controller, dispatcher servlet traps and takes the request. Number 3, dispatcher servlet handovers the request to handler mapping. Number 4, question mark. Handler mapping searches for the correct handler method of controller class or handler class to process the request and gathers that controller class bean ID, handler method signature details and passes to dispatcher servlet. That is number 5. Dispatcher servlet uses controller class bean ID to get the controller class object. How, sir? Within the dispatcher servlet already IOC container is there. By submitting bean ID of controller class, we can get controller class object. On that controller class, it calls the handler method. It calls the handler method. That is number 6, Babu. A handler mapping is giving controller class details and handler method details to dispatcher servlet. Dispatcher servlet uses controller class object, calls handler method on it now, boss. Number 7, handler method process the request, either directly or by taking the support of service and DAO classes. Either directly or by taking the support of service and DAO classes. Either directly or by taking the support of service and DAO classes. Convinced, my dear? Tell me, this handler method gives logical view name. Logical view name means what? Some token kind of thing. View related token kind of thing. View component related token kind of thing to dispatcher servlet. Are you observing, boss? Everything is happening under the monitoring of dispatcher servlet. Everything is happening under the monitoring of dispatcher servlet. Dispatcher servlet is entire Spring MVC flow is designed around dispatcher servlet, na boss. After processing results, dispatcher servlet gives a token related to view component to dispatcher servlet. And for every view component, one small token is created, that token is given. Okay, guys. Dispatcher servlet passes that token to logical view name to view resolver. What view resolver will do, guys? Based on the given logical view name token, it decides name, technology, location of the physical view component. So those details, physical view component name and location is passed to dispatcher servlet. Physical view component name and location is passed to dispatcher servlet. Is literally solidly passed to dispatcher servlet. Everyone getting my point there or not there? Everyone understanding my statement or not there? Tell me, my dear. Yes, na boss. Dispatcher servlet gets the name and location of the physical view component, nothing but name and location of the JSP component. Super. Same dispatcher servlet uses one or other technique to reach that physical view component, nothing but JSP. Okay. There, generated results will be formatted. Formatted results comes back to whom? Dispatcher servlet. Dispatcher servlet sends those formatted results to browser as response. Sends those formatted results to browser as response. Are you understanding my statement, guys? Eleven physical view component, 12 format the results, 13 sends the formatted results to browser as response. Sends the formatted results to browser as response. Everyone getting my point there, guys? Okay, now tell me, this is called Spring MVC flow. One last time, check it out. Browser gives request to Spring MVC application. As a front controller, dispatcher servlet traps and takes the request. Handovers the request to handler mapping. Handler mapping searches for correct handler method in all the handler classes. Gets correct handler method signature and its bean ID. Number 5, passes those details to dispatcher servlet. Dispatcher servlet calls handler method on handler class object. Number 7, handler method process the request directly or by taking the support of service or DAO classes. And keeps the results in a scope. Keep the results in a scope, one or other request scope. And handler method returns view component related token to dispatcher servlet. That is technically called a logical view name. Dispatcher servlet passes that token, nothing but logical view name to view resolver. View resolver somehow decides the physical view component name and location based on the received logical view name. Okay, by talking to properties file or XML file, it gets the real physical view component name and location and passes that information to dispatchers. And simply passes that information to dispatchers. Cool, guys? Now tell me, guys. Dispatcher servlet gives that information to physical view component. Dispatcher servlet communicates with that physical view component. Their presentation logic executes and results will be formatted. Formatted result comes to dispatcher servlet. Dispatcher servlet passes those formatted results to browser as response. Formatted results to browser as response. This is a controller, guys. Okay. If you directly keep the logic model, otherwise control. If you write the request processing logic directly in the handler method model, no, you are not writing, you are writing in service and DAO, and you are communicating with the service DAO from handler class. Then it is called controller, right? Right now, boss? Next, view resolver, always view layer component. View component, this is also view layer component. Handler mapping, it is always supporting front controller. Front controller is controller layer component. With respect to the diagram, browser gives request to Spring MVC application. Dispatcher servlet traps and takes the request. Dispatcher servlet handovers the request to handler mapping. Number 3. Handler mapping component searches for the handler method and the handler class that can process the current request. Number 4. Number 5. Handler mapping component gives handler method signature and handler class details to dispatcher servlet component. This is the 4th time. It should be there in your brain, Babu. Details, guys. DS calls handler method of handler class or controller class. DS calls handler method of handler class or controller class. Super boss. Handler method process the request either directly or by taking the support of service DAO classes. By taking the support of service DAO classes and also keep the generated results in model attributes. Nothing but request scope. Nothing but request scope. Handler method returns logical view name. Logical view name. Logical view name. Logical view name back to dispatcher servlet. Back to dispatcher servlet. DS gives logical view name to view resolver component. This view resolver component gives view object having the name and location of physical view component back to DS. DS executes view component to format the result. That is 11. Okay. DS gets formatted results from view component. That is 12. 13. DS sends formatted results to browser as a response. As a response. Okay, guys. Now, you doubts numbers clear. Tell me what is number 7? From your side, can you guess what is number 7? What is number 7? I am asking few questions, Ra Babu. Method execution. Number 7, I said, Ra Dilip Yadav. Blind fellow. 7 is where, Ra? 7 is where, Ra? Under 7, what message is there, Ra? Guys, it's waste here. Yeah, handler method. Sachin, after once the results are generated, it should be stored somewhere. Okay, in Servlet, if you study, request scope is there. It keeps in request object, nothing but request scope. Handler method process the request directly or by taking the support of DAO or service classes. Okay, tell me number 10. What is number 10, guys? What is number 10, guys? What is number 10? View resolver gives the name and location of physical view component back to dispatcher servlet. Nothing but JSP HTML file locations will be given or not. Okay, guys. Can you tell me what is number 3? What is number 3, guys? Logical view name is one small token kind of thing. ID token kind of. ID number 3, number 3. Array, don't write what is there in the main diagram. Give me complete sentence. Waste fellow. Mr. Radhika. Rashika and you. Dispatchers are led handovers the request to handler mapping. What is 4 question mark? What is 4 question mark? Handler mapping method, handler mapping component searches for the correct handler method and handler class where request can be processed. Where exactly the request can be processed. What is number 5, guys? Handler method details and handler class details will be given to dispatcher servlet. Will be passed to dispatcher servlet. Right now, boss? Will be passed to dispatcher servlet. Got it, my dear?
Yes. Girlfriend గురించి చెప్పండి.
Yes, now, my dear. How many approaches are there to develop Spring MVC application, guys? We can develop Spring MVC application in 4 ways. Actually, in Spring only 3 ways, guys. In Spring only 3 ways. In Spring Boot 1 way. Okay, how many ways are there? 3 ways are there. Using XML driven configurations. Using XML plus annotation driven configurations. Using 100% code driven configuration. For Spring projects, what is best, guys? This is the best. Are you understanding my statement, guys? Okay, guys. Now, this is diagrammatic flow now, boss. Diagrammatic flow. Okay, now you ask numbers, I will clarify your doubts. This flow should be there in your brain, but don't mug up. Every day we develop application based on this flow only. Every day we develop these application based on this flow only, nothing to panic. Nothing to panic, nothing to worry. Guys, I'm asking. Go through the numbers, wherever you struck it up, let me know. Go through the numbers, wherever you struck it up, let me know. If you ask, I will feel happy. Otherwise, can I assume you are good in flow of execution? Number 9. Array dispatcher servlet passes logical view name to view resolver. So that view resolver can give the name and location of physical view component back to dispatcher servlet. That is happening in number 10. That is happening in number 10. Clear, boss? Alexa, activate balcony central light.
Okay.
Can we say third and 9 are same? Array, muddy fellow, third is talking to handler mapping, 9 is talking to view resolver. Handler mapping is bridge between dispatcher servlet and handler class. Handler mapping is required to decide which handler class to execute to process the request, right? And view resolver is there to decide which view component should be used to process the generated results. Which view component should be used to process the generated result. So handler mapping is the bridge between dispatcher servlet and handler class. And view resolver is the bridge between what? Okay, handler classes and physical view component. Handler classes and physical view component. Everyone getting my point there, guys? After 7, the results will be stored in request scope, na boss. Ravi Kumar, Sai Kumar, 7, the generated results as model attributes, nothing but 7. They will be stored in request scope. And view component is also processing the same request. Na? So physical view component can gather the results from request scope and process the results. Where the results will be stored in request to scope. View component is also part of the same request so that it can miss. Handler class where kept generated result in request to scope. Keeps the generated results in request to scope. View component is also participating in the same request. From the request to scope, it will gather the results and process the results. DS executes the view component to format the results by collecting them from request to scope. Request to scope. Clear, guys? I think whatever, why I introduced these components one by one, you got idea? After seeing the diagrammatic representation, you got clarity about each component. All operations are under control of dispatcher servlet. Yes. Tomorrow when we meet, I will give code-based flow of execution. I will give sample code for handler class, sample code for handler mapping, sample code for resolver, sample JSP. Everything we take sample. We try to observe code-based flow of execution on the paintbrush level. Then we think about developing our first application. Are we good so far? Are we good so far? Are we good so far? If you understand 30% in the flow, I am happy with that. Okay. Because remaining things you will get when I go for practical coding. I think now you understood why dispatch servlet is front controller, entry and exit point. Everything it is controlling. Entire MVC is designed around dispatcher servlet, right? You'll get goosebumps when you develop the application by keeping this flow in mind. Right. Thank you guys. Have a nice time. We'll meet tomorrow and we will discuss code-based flow of execution.